The protagonist of this week's Torah portion is Pinchas the Zealot. And we probably know the story of what happened, which is in fact the very last part of last week's Torah portion. There was immorality. There was an act of immorality taking place in the Mishkan, the sanctuary, and Pinchas comes with a spear and spears both of the people committing that act. As a result of this murder, and rather disturbingly we might think, Pinchas is offered a brit shalom, a covenant of peace with God. And the word shalom, written in the Torah, has to have a break in the letter vav, as if to insinuate that there is something about this peace that is not quite perfect. What's interesting to me this year, though, is what happened after that, because Pinchas continues. He steps into service as the high priest in due course, and we find him again in the book of Joshua. The tribes that stayed on the eastern side of the Jordan, because they were cowboys and the land was better there, build an altar. This is an absolute no-no according to the requirement for centralized worship in the book of Deuteronomy, and the news is brought to Pinchas. Now, given his temperament and given his zeal for God, and given the fact that he's now a high priest and in a covenantal relationship with God, we might expect to see him racing across the Jordan to demolish this altar and create havoc for anybody else who's built it. But what's interesting is that he doesn't. He crosses, he has a conversation. The people explain that they've built the altar out of the utmost respect for God, and then Pinchas backs down and says, you know what? It's a really good idea, and you should keep it. It's not the behavior that we might expect of a zealot, but it's very interesting to see how Pinchas internalizes the brit shalom. As we look at the world and the number of modern day zealots that we have, is the lesson of this week's Torah portion perhaps that the zealots among us, or our zealous feelings, should be translated through the brit shalom so that we can calmly and objectively assess a situation that might otherwise inflame us and bring us literally or figuratively to bloodshed. That was your Torah in 2.